do there, everybody? I got me one of them colonoscopies, and they checked to see what was up my bum hole, and they found out that the reason I was so bloated was because I had a blockage eating too many strawberries. But I'm back. It's been a little bit. Reading from the book of Carolla. In 50 years, we'll all be chicks. And it couldn't be more fitting for the times that we're going through right now, even though it was made 10 years ago. This chapter, we're going to talk about how we've built a minimum wage gilded cage. Let's begin. We made a mistake in this country that will rank up there with slavery and Japanese internment camps. We deputized a bunch of minimum wagers and placed them in every guard shack behind every counter at every gate and gave them carte blanche to F with us. We essentially are prisoners in a penitentiary that we paid for. Let me give you two quick stories that would have never happened in the country 50 years ago. Last year, I went to the X Games to watch a friend race in the rally competition. The race was going to begin momentarily, and I was running late. I was met in the parking lot by a guy who had my credentials, and we started jogging towards the entrance. We got to the entrance. There was an $8 an hour guy in a yellow windbreaker standing between a 2-foot gap in the barrier. No common sense, these people. We showed him our credentials and we said, "You can't get in this way." At first we were confused. "These are all access laminates," he said. We had all the right laminates, but that we had to enter at the end of the barriers on the other side of the parking lot. I looked to the right and saw that if we did that, it would lead us right back to the same spot just on the other side of the 2-foot barrier that we were standing in front of. There was no metal detectors to pass through and no paperwork to sign. He simply wanted us to go 100 yards to the right and then back, end up in the same exact place that we were already at. Keep in mind, all he needed to do was move half a step to the left and we could have passed straight into the venue. And there was no line, so we weren't cutting off anybody, and he just wanted to watch us dance. There's no way our grandfathers would have put up with guys making 10 cents a effing hour with like him. They would have pulled a derringer from their boot and shot him in the face, and there wouldn't have been a court in the land that would have convicted them. The second incident happened over the holidays at Disneyland's California Adventure. What a place. Quick note, if anyone who's in charge of the music selection is reading, the weird Muzak version of California Girls is fine, but perhaps you should think about pulling the Mamas and the Papas classic California Dreaming from the set. I was eating a frozen banana with my daughter in my lap thinking, I wonder if Papa John Phillips was effing his daughter when he wrote this song. Anyway, back to the minimum wager, who would wage war on happiness. We'd been waiting in line to ride some zip line device with a tire at the end of it for just about 20 minutes. My son had pushed out early on, and now it was just me and my daughter. When it was her turn, the diesel dyke in the khaki slacks and matching ranger hat said she has to be at least 42 inches tall to go on the ride. Another quick sidebar, that effing arm that measures kids' height should be at the back of the goddamn line so you don't have to wait half an hour to find out you're not Splash Mountain material. You should probably know where this one is heading. So Rosie O'Donnell's husky doppelganger says, "Step under Jiminy Cricket's arm." I knew this was merely a formality since we just got off another ride and Natalia made the 42 inches with plenty to spare. This time, however, the minimum wage maximum bitch said she wasn't tall enough. I got down on one knee to get a better look, and I'm telling you, a Pop-Tart dipped in Astroglide would not have made it between the top of my daughter's head and the bottom of Jiminy's arm. Her effing hair was touching the arm. I said, "She's tall enough." The diesel dyke just said, "Next." I said, "Wait a minute, we've been waiting all this time and you're just going to kick us out." She said, "She doesn't meet the height requirements." I said, by 3/30 seconds of an inch, and if she knew how to stand up straight, her scalp would be bleeding. It was at this point that Ranger C. Word dug in. What the F has our society come to when people armed with only a windbreaker and a name tag can screw you so royally with the people who pay their salaries? And what is that instinct to dig in over nothing? She's taking a moral stand against my daughter, enjoying her afternoon. Lawyers, unions, wrongful termination lawsuits have created our little slice of Russia right here in the USA. These damn planes and helicopters are always flying over, just disturbing and wasting gas, probably spreading noxious fumes upon us as we speak. But we'll have to endure the pain of the helicopters just so people could get where they want to be faster, or these cops could just nosy in on other people's stuff for whatever reason. But anyway, back to the story. Let's get back to it. We created a little piece of Russia right here in the USA. We've made it almost impossible to fire people and have thus enabled all the angry, frustrated douchebags whose names you never remember at in high school unions to F with our pursuit of happiness. When Jimmy was doing Win Ben Stein's money, I would go by the lot and visit him, and it was always the same routine. He would leave my name at the guard shack at the entrance. The following is an exchange I've had 350 times with every guard on the lot in this town. Hi, I'm here to see Jimmy Kimmel. Who's he? He's on Win Ben Stein's money. What's your name? Adam Carolla. Let me check the list. You're not on the list. I don't know what the fantasy is at this point, that I'll just go up in a cloud of smoke and I'll admit that this was all part of some horribly conceived ruse and apologize. Or shall I just throw the car in reverse and drive back up the hill to my home? But it seems to be the expectation. I tell him to check the list again. He then asks what my name is a second time. At a certain point, when he realized I'm not going anywhere, he asks one more time, "Who are you here to see?" And then picks up the phone and says, "Yeah, I have," points index finger at me. I shout my name for the third time. He repeats a facsimile of what I shouted at him into the phone, and then begrudgingly opens the gate with a look that says, "You may have won this round, Mr. Coppola, but don't worry, Alan, I'll be back." Here's what I'd like to scream at all the people who put themselves into the gatekeeper's position. First, remove that plate of shit someone put under your nose and act like that you want to be there. Second, I'm not asking for entry into your 14-year-old's vagina. I'm just trying to drive onto a effing lot. Third, it's not your goddamn lot. Your job is not to stop all people from getting onto the lot. It's to prevent certain people from getting onto the lot. Points 4 through 27. Drop your attitude. Just because you control a white piece of 1x6 from a telephone booth with a wall mount air conditioner doesn't make you General MacArthur. This country is being overrun by these assholes, and no one wants to say anything because they're getting minimum wage to park our BMWs. I'll tell you the same thing I'll tell my embarrassed wife. When I dig into these ass wipes with their GEDs dipped in attitude, I'm doing them a favor. Somebody needs to settle their shitty hash because they're not going anywhere with the attitude they currently possess. Obviously, it has not served them well. Here's some advice for you people. Shake yourself like a Etch-a-Sketch and start over. You've already spent your 30s in a terrarium holding a clipboard with a pencil tied to it and sucking up carbon monoxide. What would you like to be buried in? Here's another parking lot related anecdote. The reason I'm telling this story is to hopefully inspire you and to kill pages. I was going to an event in Hollywood at the Palace Theater. As I was pulling into the lot adjacent to the theater, the guy with the flag yelled, $20. Not how are you, that will be $20. Just $20. I said, I'm sitting on my wallet, let me park in the spot that's 10 feet ahead of me. I'll get out of the car and give you the $20. He said, you give me the $20 now. Keep in mind, I was wearing a suit, sitting on the tail of the jacket, and at the time I was driving a 350Z, which means my ass was lower than my feet. I said to the guy one more time, just let me park the car and I'll give you the 20 when I climb out. What did he think my plan was? To jump out of the car, laugh like Ray Liotta and yell, sucker, I'm running to Mexico? Good luck selling that $35,000 car, he said. No, I need the 20 now. And I said, screw it, I'm going across the street. I threw the car into reverse to pull out and park at the competitor's lot, so he said, fine, Park the car, then give me the 20. And then I did what I'm asking all of you to do and what makes me a hero. I said, F you, and I pulled out and totaled a van filled with retarded kids. No, I just went across the street and parked. I never thought I'd be cast in the role of asshole Robin Hood. I always assumed I'd be trying to stick it to the man, but as it turns out, the problem is not so much with the man, but with the men he's giving $8 an hour to. The minimum wagers who were put on this planet to ruin your short stay on the same planet came in many different shapes and sizes. Usually they have penises and huge guts that hang over the top of their penises to protect them from the rain. But once in a rare while they'll come in the form of a young petite female, and the next story is just such a case. I had a hankering for Middle Eastern food, so I headed for the city of Van Nuys to a restaurant I frequently called Zankou Chicken. Middle Eastern food sounds horrible on paper and looks horrible on paper, but tastes delicious. And once you decide you're in the mood for Italian, Chinese, or burgers, they just don't do. So I sped toward Van Nuys with the vision of shawarma dancing in my head, jumped out of my car and ran into Zankou, and proceeded to order, and I always get the 50-50 shawarma plate, half chicken, half beef. For those of you who have never heard of shawarma, let me A, explain to you what it is, and B, thank you for being heroes in the fight against terrorism. Shawarma is slices of beef or chicken piled high on a vertical spit that rotates in front of a red-hot three-sided space heater. An electric knife is used to carve off morsels that usually end up in the provided pita and eventually in your belly. In the case of Zankou, their shawarma station had the two spits side by side just inches apart. It's important to note that the price of the shawarma plate, be it chicken or beef, was the same, $7.99. And with that in mind, I happily ordered my 50-50 shawarma plate. The 17-year-old Armenian she-dwarf who weighed all of 98 pounds, and if you subtracted the eyeliner, would have been well into the low 70s, said, "We don't do half and half. It's either all chicken or all beef." I said, "I know for a fact you do the 50-50 shawarma plate because that's what I order every time I come here, and I've been here at least 10 times. The curt cunt just repeated what she said the first time. I said, "I think you're misunderstanding what I'm asking for. Not more meat, just the same amount, but with chicken and beef. If they're both the same price, instead of 2 swipes with the electric knife on either the beef or the chicken, just give 1 on the beef and 1 on the chicken." She then uttered the phrase that's the battle call of all shitty businesses. Everyone asks for that. God forbid you give the public what they want. As a matter of fact, we could avoid this whole mess if you just boarded up the doors and got on the roof with a hunting rifle like a Korean liquor store owner during a black riot. Or you could just give everyone what they're asking for since it doesn't cost you an extra damn penny. She explained that she could get in trouble. I said, "Go get your manager. We need to talk about shawarma and your attitude." She said, "He's not here." I asked, "Then how is he gonna know you gave me 50-50 shawarma plate?" But Tammy Faye Baklava wouldn't budge. At this point, a lesser man would have ordered the falafel plate, but this American said, "Let's roll to the Zankou in East Hollywood." She just grunted and gave me the "see you in hell" look. I left with the satisfaction knowing that in a few short years her Armenian husband would be beating the holy shit out of her, and that it's not a slight on Armenian men. If she married Carl Sagan, he'd be beating the F out of this bitch on a nightly basis. I hopped into my Honda and set sail for the Zankou Chicken on Hollywood in Normandy, which is nowhere near the Zankou on Sepulveda and Burbank and Van Nuys, where I was. A scanty 50 minutes later, and now starving, I walked into Zankou Chicken, said to the guy who looked like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, give me a 50-50 shawarma plate, and without any hesitation he said, "Would you like a drink with that?" My first impulse was to drive back to Van Nuys to settle that bitch's hummus, but by the time my blood sugar and resolve were both dropping quickly, so I settled in for one of the most and simultaneously least satisfying lunches of my life. I'll leave you with another tale of a minimum wager attempting to ruin my life, but this one has a storybook ending. I was at a billiards hall drinking beer and shooting pool on a Friday night after a man show taping. It was a man show tradition after every tape night. We would go to a big pool hall and drink pitchers of beer until the PAs got drunk enough to tell you what they really thought of you. I was in the middle of a conversation with a PA about how Jimmy was the funny one, and somebody ran up the stairs and yelled, "They're towing your car." I, along with a couple of people, ran down the stairs and across the street to find my car hooked up to a tow truck that was ready to drive away. I'll bore you with a few quick details because they're important. To the telling of the story, one, the car was a brand new silver BMW M3, and two, the tow truck was one of those modern style ones that had the two prongs that slid under your back tires and lifted the rear end of the car off the ground. I ran up to the gentleman and said, "This is my car, how can we take care of this?" And he said, "You can follow me to the impound lot." I said, "How about we just take care of this right now? I'll pay you and we can both go our separate ways." He said, "That's not going to work," and began to drive away. I jumped on my car and mashed my foot on the brake pedal as hard as I could. He dragged me for a couple feet, then jumped out of the truck and yelled, "What are you doing?" I said, "You're not towing the car. Let's just take care of this now." He said, "I have to tow the car. If I don't come back to the impound lot with a car, my boss will ask questions." I said, "Do you ever go out on a call and by the time you show up the car is gone?" He said, "It happens all the time." I said, "Let's just make this one of those times." He said no and headed for the cab of his truck. I then headed for the driver's seat of my car and we began round 2 of Dancing with the Tards. We both jumped out of the vehicle, got into it again, and at a certain point I said, "Why are you being such an asshole? This could have been settled easily and nobly the way our forefathers would have done it, with a trip to the ATM, but no. This dick was going to make me follow him down to downtown LA at 1 a.m. and fill out a bunch of paperwork. All of a sudden I heard a voice yell, "Pull your tie down off." It was the voice of one of our directors, Tom. Tom wasn't exactly what you would call straight-laced. He once, in the middle of the AIDS hysteria of the late 80s, dressed as a junkie hobo and went into a crowded New York subway car and shot fake blood from a prosthetic penis at a horrified crowd of commuters. I looked over and I saw that Tom had taken the nylon lashings off the passenger side rear wheel. I, without hesitation, pulled the lashings off the driver's side, and then Tom screamed, "Go!" Keep in mind, the rear wheel of the car were at the height of the kitchen countertop. Maybe it was adrenaline, maybe it was fear of being squirted by a fake penis, but I jumped into the car again. The car didn't budge. The problem was its rear-wheel drive, and the tires were on the track that prevented them from rolling forward. Tom was now slapping the hood, yelling, "Go!" This time I threw some revs on the engine and dropped the clutch. The car lurched forward and landed on the ground with a thud, hitting something on the way down. I didn't have time to get out and assess the damage. I just hauled ass into the night, and so did Tom. I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and did what I always do. Waited for the federal marshal to show up at my house. The following morning I went down to the garage fearing the worst, and to my shock and delight, the only thing wrong with the M3 was the spare tire well in the trunk got converted from an innie to an outie. I pulled out the spare tire, climbed in the trunk, and jumped up and down on the sheet metal until it went back into its original form. There are probably more than one of you at this point who feel sorry for the tow truck driver. To you, I say, suck it. This dick brought it upon himself. This would have never happened in the past or today in New Jersey. We could have settled this with a couple of 20s and a handshake, but in the immortal words of John Rambo, they drew first blood, not me. Tow truck drivers are the worst people on the planet, second only to meter maids, which are also a big bunch of a-holes. The lion's share of the work these days of these guys do consist of going on money-making sweeps with local cops and hanging out in flooded intersections to charge people $50 to tow their stalled Hondas out of the drink. And the impound yards they work for are a bunch of extortionists. I got a motorcycle towed at 11:30 on a Thursday night and went to pick it up at 7 Friday morning, and they charged me for 2 days storage. Feeling sorry for these assholes is like feeling sorry for Uday or Quasi Hussein. F those guys. And besides, It is nice to hear a story where the rich white guy wins for a change. Oh, this guy, he had some great stories. That was it. We built a middle-waged gilded cage for ourselves. There's too many undereducated, dumb people that have too much power over the stupidest things, and they have no common sense. So next time, when you're thinking about what it is that you're doing, or when you're at work, if you're one of those people, use common sense. The company doesn't care about you. If you give them an extra burger on accident or whatever, they're not gonna hurt from it because that burger cost them nothing. And it could cost you your job. So think about it. Until next time, I'm Pop, and we'll catch you with the next chapter, I believe, is... Well, we'll figure that out next week. It's called The Airport 2010. Until next time. Do you guys have my food ready? Because I am hungry.